Welcome to the chase. You know, we're all running this race. We're all trying to claim victory in it. In my job, I get to sit down with wealthy people all week long. I hear about their wins, I hear about their losses, and quite frankly, like a bartender, I hear about their heartache. And I don't want you to run that type of race, or at least I want you to succeed at the race that you're running, and I want you to succeed at something that matters. Think about it like this. All the while you're chasing after something that's good, God's chasing you with something great. Well, hello. Welcome to The Chase. I'm Chris McAlpin, managing partner at Sound Financial and one of the hosts of The Chase. And I'm with Joshua Taffer, my good buddy Josh. It is not Joel Holden. Our good buddy Josh is, he's not really home on COVID relief. He's not on COVID restriction.
We're in that iffy space.
Yeah, but we had to go to the lefty in the bullpen to get you out from behind the camera.
I know.
On the other side, okay?
I've been
so what's going on with the COVID thing? I mean, does he have COVID or not?
I don't know if we even want to know at this point.
Yeah, because you and I might have to go home for a while.
Well, but we've both been exposed, been a part. It's one of these things where I think at this point, it's just, right?
I'm going to put my mask on. We got to put a mask on for the show now?
I don't think so, but we're here, and so you pulled from the bullpen.
The bullpen. It's kind of, you know, I've been wanting to get you over here on this side of the camera. Okay, Josh runs everything on the other side of the camera, so he makes me look pretty.
That's right.
Makes me sound good. Tough job, but it's kind of like getting Bear. I've compared you to Bear on College Game Day. You know, the game. He's not the fixer. What do you call the bookie? It's what we used to call the bookie. He's not a bookie, but practically it's legal now, so he could do that. So you're not a bookie, but you sit on the other side of the camera and you give us data and you give us stats and you make faces at us. And
right. I'll tell you to stop.
What's your job?
Well, listen, I think that's what we're trying to decide. Anyway,
is that
right?
what your job is?
Producer, researcher, editor, either way.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. Since you're the producer, what are we talking about today?
So I think we're going to go through a few things, but the goal, if we can keep everything on track, will be to kind of sum up the chase. We're coming up on a year of doing this.
Yeah.
So just kind of refocus, make sure, I mean, we know what to talk about, but make sure maybe some of these people have joined us late, right? And so they didn't decide to go back to episode 1. So my first question is going to be, why even do the chase?
Well, it was quarantine. It was COVID.
Right.
And there were no sports to talk about. There was too much politics to talk about. And everybody had already turned the stock market into gambling. So we had to pick another topic to do a podcast on.
Right.
That was why.
That was why.
That was why. No other reason than that.
Anyway, I guess
no, we have a deeper reason than that.
Right.
We really do have a deeper reason than that. This is, Josh, for a decade and a half of being an advisor, but really being around the industry, if I count education and internships, for 25 years. If I go back to the mid-90s.
We'll count them.
We'll count them. I've been around a while, you know. Like my kids are saying, I'm pretty old, you know. So I've watched what money does to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this problem in our nation where we are tremendously wealthy and we're blinded by it.
Okay.
So here's some stats. Over 50% of the nation, of our country, are in the top 10% wealth bracket in the world.
Okay.
So you remember the Wall Street protest for the one percenters?
Yep.
Most of the people protested were one percenters. If they weren't one percenters, they were in the top 10. And
you're talking about globally.
I'm just talking about in the United States right now.
Okay.
I'm talking about in the United States. So over half of us are in the top 10% of the global wealth bracket.
Right.
Right. And nearly everyone has the education, the resources, and the opportunities, or the access to education, resources, and opportunities to be in that wealth bracket.
Okay.
Compared to the rest of the world.
We have a lot of resources.
Tremendous. Well, we have so many resources that we're blinded by. So we are completely soaked in this idea that to be wealthy, you're Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk.
Somebody other than me.
Somebody other than me.
and yet we're so wealthy that it's no longer a blessing, it's become a curse.
Okay.
In our nation, we are soaked in wealth, resources, opportunities, you name it. And in fact, you can look at a lot of our current events. You think of some of the things that we argue about.
Okay.
I would challenge people, look at your text strings with your friends. Look at some of the stuff that people just get pissed off about.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll leave my family out of it.
Leave your family out of it. I'll leave mine out of it too. You politics, sports, community events. How mad do people get over their HOA? Okay.
Pretty mad.
Pretty mad. All right. You got to be wealthy. You got to have free time.
Yeah.
And you got to have nothing else of value going on to get to have the time to go read into this and get mad about it.
That makes sense.
I'm not talking about national freedoms. I'm not talking about there are some fights politically that are worth fighting. Okay, I'm not getting into. I'm talking about the stupid stuff. And whatever you define as stupid, whatever a listener defines as stupid, you're going to find somebody with a tremendous amount of free time. So one of the reasons, why did we do the show?
Yeah.
Okay, why, going back to that question, why did we do the show? What bothered us so bad that we're going to say, we're going to put a lot of money, time, and effort into saying, we've got something to say that we think is of value.
Yeah.
Right? It's that God blesses us with wealth. I could go to Deuteronomy 8 and read through the list.
Right.
Okay. I could read through these verses, and if I put it into an American translation, we're not the nation of Israel. I'm not comparing us to the nation of Israel in this.
Okay.
Okay. But recently, my family and I drove to the Rockies, went to Yellowstone, went to Glacier National. I drove through state after state after state with nothing but food growing out of the ground.
Yeah.
A massive plain of food.
Mm-hmm.
So we have food security. I drove through city after city after city, town after town after town. We have shelter stability.
Yeah.
Okay. You go back to school after school after school after school after school. Everybody has access to education, which gives them access to opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a banking system that ensures the flow of capital around the nation. If you got a good idea, somebody will fund it to let you start a business. And if you're good at that business, you'll grow it and you'll hire people so somebody can get a job.
I agree with that.
Right? We've got the rule of law, the stability of law, okay, that ensures the protection of private ownership and public ownership, so that it ensures the value of your asset, and therefore you can grow the value of that asset. Right? Yeah. So if you read down Deuteronomy 8, right, he says it in a different way. It's a lot of agriculture terms in there, but it's basically the same thing. Basically, he says you're going to have a bunch of land and it's going to grow a bunch of food. You're going to be able to go mine copper and iron and gold and silver. You're going to be wealthy.
Right.
But if you disobey God, if you forget that God has blessed you with this wealth, it says it in Deuteronomy, do not ever think that it's your own strength, wisdom, or ingeniousness that has caused this wealth. It's God's blessing, who blessed you with the wisdom to create the wealth.
I agree.
Okay? And if you forget it, this wealth will become a curse.
Now, I think there's plenty of places in there to argue, well, then why do certain people who are non-believers have a tremendous amount of wealth? Are they being blessed?
I love that question. I'm glad you asked.
Now, why do people who are openly against get to become so wealthy while you have believers doing everything they can, helping everywhere, following to what they believe is the T, that don't have as much?
That don't have as much money. Okay, yeah. And define wealth. I define wealth as much as money, time, education, resources, access to resources, opportunities. Okay. All of things that kind of wrap up with being wealthy. That our middle class in America today, average middle class, I'm not talking upper middle class, average middle class is wealthy in 90% plus of the places in the world.
Right.
Okay. Just their lifestyle, the food security, the housing security, 2 cars, they'll run out of electronics, okay, education, etc. Right? So, but why does the sun shine on the wicked as much as the good, as the verses said. And there's a lot of verses like this, okay? Number one is called common grace. In theology, that's called common grace, one of the ideas of it. And it is the idea that there is a certain type of blessing where God blesses everybody.
Okay.
The nation as a whole, the earth as a whole, the people as a whole, okay? And that is God's blessing. I think he does this for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are made in his image, okay? That wicked person that the listener is thinking about right now, or you're thinking about when you ask that question, God loves them too. And that wicked person's made in his image.
Yeah.
He wants to see that wicked person come to Christ. And if that wicked person never sees any good, how would they recognize good when they saw it? So if that wicked person was never blessed, okay, how would they recognize it when they saw it? They wouldn't.
They would have no frame of reference.
They would have no frame of reference to know good. To know God's grace, to know God's salvation.
Okay.
I think that's number one. Number two, that wicked person's made in God's image.
Right.
God's placed these blessings on this nation so that wicked person is smart.
Yeah.
That wicked person has good common sense. They work hard. They're a good leader. They have good ideas. They're willing to go risk and chase those good ideas, maybe more so than the believer who's not as smart, who's not as, does not work as hard. There's a lot of believers out there that are lazy.
I'd agree with that.
Okay? There's a lot of good people out there that are just dumb. All right, God bless them. We love them, and
Bless their
just
heart.
not very bless their heart. But I mean, they're blessed the way that they're blessed.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that a lot of times too, when we ask that question, we only think of that wicked person as blessed with wealth, and I'm a believer, and I'm not blessed with wealth, so therefore God has not blessed me. That's not true.
That's what I was going to say. As you were unraveling your points, I think it's the frame that which we're looking at, success or wealth. When you added in storage of grain, being able to grow things, being able to have resources. I mean, my phone's on the ground silenced, but how many things are we able to immediately study and learn and grasp a concept? I mean, the business that you were just talking about, I can research, do the marketing, submit for my loan, and run it all from something in my pocket now.
Right. That's amazing. That's an amazing blessing of human ingenuity that came from God.
So if all things came from God.
All good things came from God.
Sorry. All good things came from God. So the wealth, money, has to be biblical.
Money, wealth, originally, yes.
So
where are you going with that? I'm kind of curious. What do you mean by it? It's
I
got to be biblical. Okay.
What is the biblical purpose of wealth?
What is the biblical purpose of wealth? Number one, the biblical purpose of wealth is God's glory.
Okay.
So we look at 2 Corinthians 9. It says that you'll be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through us, your generosity, as Paul was writing to the church of Corinth, your generosity will produce thanksgiving to God.
Your generosity say that again.
Will produce thanksgiving to God.
My generosity will produce thanksgivings. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will be enriched.
Yep.
So that you can be generous. And through that generosity, it will produce thanksgiving to God.
Okay.
It is the most concise answer to what is the biblical purpose. Therefore, what is God's purpose for wealth?
Okay.
Okay. So the way that's often taught in church, and this is where people stop listening because they've heard it 1,900 bajillion times, right? Every sermon you've ever heard in church is on tithing, offering, generosity, give. Do nothing else with your money, but give. Be a Dumbo on Monday, do terrible at your job, but give. I take a little bit of offense at this type of teaching, okay? Because it is accurate, okay? And I 100% love our pastors. I'm not picking on. Yeah, I guess I am picking on them.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But Sunday morning from the pulpit is a hard medium to teach this topic from.
Well, I mean, we will criticize just as other people could criticize our position. But when you look and they're standing in the pulpit, in my church I go to, at first grade, they get to come to big church.
That's right.
So my first grader, my generation,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got my dad and
Right.
my grandparents. So we're talking about
Right.
4 separate generations
Yeah.
you're trying to talk money to.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, and it's not. Who are you going to speak to in that room? Okay, and because your first grader is sitting there, he's coloring. You're hoping he's going to be quiet. He's just thinking if I'll be still long enough, I don't get a spanking in church.
Right.
You know,
Right. In church.
in church, like in the back. You know. Yeah. By the way, as a dad, if you'll spank your oldest one, you'll never have to spank another one at church ever again, because they'll tell them, "Dad ain't kidding. He will wear you out."
If they're
like
good,
the rumor
if they're a
grows.
good big brother. Right?
Yeah, that's right. The rumor grows. Yeah. So it's a hard medium to teach it from the pulpit on Sunday morning. It just is. It just is. And I've had pastors tell me, Chris, y'all are the financial advisors. You're the investment guys. Please teach it, because you would do a better job. Because this is what you and I understand. This is what we do.
Right. This is what we enjoy.
We enjoy doing, and we see it Monday through Friday, not just Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
So the biblical purpose of wealth, the biblical purpose of money is God's glory. Just like God's purpose of everything on earth is His glory.
Yeah.
Everything that He created is good. Sin has twisted it. Okay? So the purpose of food is our nourishment to His glory. Right? The purpose of sex is His glory. The purpose of a home is His glory. All right. And everybody goes, well, now you sounded really, really, really super spiritual. No, it puts it in its proper order.
Okay.
It puts it in its proper place. Our problem with money is that we want to put it on the throne. Man, when I went to school, it was the roaring 90s, right? We had no enemies in the world. We were the world empire. Yeah. You went to business school, the smartest, the hardest working, went to business school to go make money. Mm-hmm. And you were you were the future kings of the world in, B school in the 90s, stockbroker's assistant at Dean Witter. Man, you were going to make a fortune. Go watch the movies. Mm-hmm. Most of them were real. They're only slightly exaggerated.
Right.
I didn't have a Ferrari. Okay, that was it. All right. It was this broken idea, and we put money on the throne. And then it kind of goes back to your question of why do wicked people succeed? Well, is it success when they're cursed with wealth?
No.
Right. They're still cursed with it. And so we chase money, and we wonder why it doesn't satisfy us. I have heard people worth tens of millions of dollars make the same complaint of people with a negative net worth.
Yeah.
Because it's just not enough. So when we say the biblical purpose of wealth or money is God's glory, and somebody wants to tune us out like, womp, 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 you sound so churchy, that it's because we want to go to a selfish purpose for that money. Okay?
Yep.
So now, I'd say that there's 3 primary supporters of it. So there's 3 purposes of God's glory there, okay? Number 1 is generosity. So we go diving into 2 Corinthians 9, and we see that that our generosity does a couple of things. God has blessed us with excess, so that we can share that excess with someone else, so that they are now provided with money to meet needs today, education to grow into opportunities in the future, resources to meet those opportunities, maybe the network to have some starting opportunities. Yeah. And you and I have talked about this before, where we sit down with somebody, we help them go through a business plan, but not even, take their idea, their God-given idea, help them do a business plan and go introduce them to the banker.
Yep.
Right?
Because we know the banker.
Right? Because and that's actually that to me is the most fun way to do it.
Right.
Because then the banker trusts the phone call from one of us.
Yep.
Because we're not going to, and I'll also look at the person we're helping and say, I'm not calling the banker unless you're going to work hard.
Yep.
unless your idea is good, and unless you're coachable and willing to learn.
Yeah.
And I am happy to pour all I got into you if you're willing to do those things.
Yep.
You know, you're going to get my best, but I got to get your best. And then you got my Rolodex, you got my friend's Rolodex,
Yep.
you got, if money you need, we're glad to invest all of that in you. Well, that is a fulfilling feeling for you and for me as well. So it meets another one of our needs that people chase all over the world, and they look for these fake adventures. Right? Then they got to go take 100 million pictures so that they can post them on Instagram, and they can tell everybody how cool they are, what an adventurer they are, when the truth is they're just looking for a false thrill.
Yeah.
Now, when you and I were 18 and 20, 22 years old, I went for a lot of false thrills. I looked for a lot of adrenaline junkie stuff. I loved trying to get as close to death as I possibly could. It was a blast.
Yep. Won't argue with it.
Yeah. But you outgrow it.
Yeah.
Why? It's because it's kind of like a drug. Once you've done it a few times, it's okay.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm a dad. I have a couple kids. I got one on the way.
Yeah.
I enjoy that responsibility.
Yeah.
Like it's not a drag. It's an enjoyment.
Yeah.
And so if I go do stupid things typically happen.
They do that. That's true. I paid for some of those today. They hurt. 25 years later,
and then it affects my family.
Yeah, it does.
And I don't want it to affect my family.
It does. So, why don't we let's come back. Let's take a break.
Yep.
We probably need a break time. Yep. I think sponsors and people need to talk in between this. We'll stop.
Yep.
And we'll come back and we'll keep going on the three purposes.
Works for me.
74% of Christians don't know that faith-based investing is an option. Faith-based investing is a way of investing that emphatically says no to hurting people in the world that God created. It's also a dedication to not compromise the mandate that God gave us to multiply and be prosperous. Perhaps you and your spouse have been talking about the subject, or maybe God has just nudged your heart as you've listened to this podcast, or maybe you're simply interested in hearing more. If you would like to speak to one of our advisors, please go to soundfsg.com/thechase.
So number one, the biblical purpose of money, again, God's glory, supported by three ideas. So truths, not ideas.
Okay.
One, generosity.
No,
crystal clear.
That's an important
point. It's a truth, not an idea. 2 Corinthians 9:11 says, you will be enriched so that you can be generous, so that can lead to so that can be delights. God's glory. So it's one of those things. You're welcome to disagree with Chris McAlpin.
Yeah.
Fair. Good luck disagreeing with the Bible.
Okay.
You're on your own on that one. Because that one says you will be enriched, and everyone. Go read it in context if you'd like to. The whole 2 chapters, chapter 8 and 9, is on generosity. All right, so good luck. Be my guest. But there's 2 more ideas that we see, especially in chapter 9 there, and we see it throughout the Bible.
Okay.
All right. Number 2 is investments.
Okay.
Right. And he uses the idea, uses the analogy that God gives seed to a sower and that the farmer plants the seed to grow for the future.
Okay.
Okay. All farmers know that you do not consume all of your seed. You do not enjoy it all yourself. You do not give it all away, or you will not have a harvest in the future.
Yeah.
Okay? And Paul's not saying when he writes that, so therefore God's not saying you give it all away just so that God can give it back to you again. Right? There are episodes in the Bible of that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that there's not, and that's really a different teaching for a different time, okay? But we get the idea. There's a strong implication that investment is a part of this so that you can be generous in the future, so that God gives the glory.
Point 1.
It becomes cyclical here. And it actually leads into point number 3 as well, which is your own provision and your own enjoyment.
So you're telling me I get to enjoy things?
You get to enjoy things, absolutely. And then we get this idea in the Bible that throughout is this idea of pious poverty. Because we get this idea in teaching in church of this pious poverty. Randy Alcorn calls it Christoplatonism, which is a big old word he made up.
I was going to say that's Bigger word than pious.
It's a bigger word than pious. Yes. Pious is overtly rich, religious. Okay. Poverty is poor. Pious poverty is a word. I guess maybe I put it together. I don't know where I got it from, to be honest.
I've heard it before.
Okay, maybe not from me. All right. So the idea of pious poverty, of going and intentionally, I'm going to be poor. I'm going to give away all I have and go to the mission field.
Because that's what the Bible says.
All right. That is not 100% what the Bible says.
Right.
Jesus told a rich man to do it because he was talking to the rich man's idol.
Okay.
Right? There are examples throughout history of the church of people doing it. Mother Teresa,
right.
She was a rich girl who did this. C.T. Studd, he was a rich boy who did this. Lovell. Anybody with the name C.T. Studd, that's a cool name. He's a cool missionary anyway. And he was an Olympic gold medalist. I mean, he's really a cool kind of guy anyway.
Right.
He's also the guy who said, I'd rather someone to live within the sound of a chapel or church bell. I want to run a rescue shop within a yard of hell.
Really?
Yeah. How about that for a saying? That's a cool statement. All right. So that's C.T. Studd. So Jesus told a rich man to do this. There are episodes of, yes, God's calling on someone to give their money away and go work in ministry and missions. Like that is a specific calling. And so I don't kind of lump that into this sanctimonious idea of pious poverty. I am saying this, there's this, sometimes this teaching in church where there's this self-righteous, sanctimonious, legalistic, kind of crusty idea of I'm just not going to have anything and enjoy anything all because I got to give it all away. And I think there's a danger in that. I know that I can have a tendency to be, only because I just kind of have a Spartan personality. I mean, I spilled coffee on my shirt earlier. I don't really care.
Right.
It's okay. I just really, whatever. Right. But the idea that we get to enjoy God's provision. Okay. God made food taste good. I use that example all the time. God made a steak and a glass of wine just taste good.
Yeah.
Okay. In both cases, if you eat too much steak, you are a glutton and you are sinful. If you drink too much wine, you are a drunk and you are sinful.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like your money, if you enjoy that wealth in a way that it becomes your idol, it becomes ultimate to you. It is how you define success. It is where you place your security, okay? And it is how you define your status in the world, your identity.
Yeah.
You are sinful. I don't care if you have $1 or 100 million. And I've seen it in both rich and poor. People do that with money. So we can enjoy God's blessings and praise Him for it. We can enjoy wealth, which I've already said, money, but it's also resources, opportunities, the chance to go build stuff that's cool, that blesses other people and gives God glory. Those are His ideas. Profit is His idea. Those are good. So, generosity, investment, and enjoyment. And it flows better if you say generosity, enjoyment, investment, because you can say investment so that you can do it again.
Right.
Okay. But it's actually, if you teach it the way it's written, it goes, then investment's in the middle. But those work together for God's glory. I mean, you get this rhythm of wealth.
So that actually leads me to my next question. We led up, you talked a little bit about generosity, we talked about investing. So would you say that investing is biblical?
Well, the Bible would say that.
So Chris would say it, and
that's right.
it was breathed by God.
Yes.
Okay.
It was. That's right.
So if investing is biblical, how? Where did you see that it is?
All right, so you see it a couple of different ways. And the favorite passage for everybody to go to is to look at Jesus in the parable of the talents, in which he tells a story of, one guy gets 10, one guy gets 5, one guy gets 2. Another times, one guy gets 5, one guy gets 2, one guy gets 1. And when we've taught this before, I use the weights. So one weight of talent would have been 75 pounds of gold.
Okay.
Which would have been
That's pretty
about
light.
it's pretty light, $2.5 million by the price of gold today. So it was a significant amount of money. When you teach through that and you look at today's average income, the median income in America is about $65,000.
Yeah.
$65,000 over a 40-year career, no raises, no losses, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about $2.7 million. So you could say that it's very similar to getting a talent of gold.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you just get inflation for that person, all right, so it about doubles it to nearly $5 million, which is about the same as getting about 2 talents of gold. So, this goes back to this teaching where we started the whole recap of the whole season of saying you are blessed with wealth.
Yep.
Almost everybody in America fits in 2 of the 3 positions of the parable of the talents that Jesus is telling. Now, not everybody has $10 million. Not everybody's going to make $10 million of a career. But most people are going to make between $2.5 and $5 million in their career.
Right.
Okay. And if they follow financial principles, they're going to hang on to a lot of that money.
Yeah.
So is investing biblical? Jesus would say so, yes. But also Paul would say when in 2 Corinthians 9, when I talked earlier and I said that a farmer gets seed, and God is blessing that farmer's seed to invest into the ground so that he can have a future harvest. Same thing as an investor investing their money in a 401k, an IRA, an investment account, savings account, all kinds of ideas.
Reap what you sow.
Yeah, I mean, and you're going to reap what you sow. Absolutely. You sow generously, you're going to reap generously.
Mm-hmm.
You sow stingily, okay, you're going to reap stingily. In other words, you don't invest anything, just spend up all you got.
Right.
You're not going to have anything in the future.
Yeah. And, go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, and then
I talk all the time.
It was
so why don't you talk?
Maybe on
I'll
camera.
beat you to it. Yeah, I'll beat you to it.
I think Ecclesiastes, isn't there a conversation about sending your bread overseas?
Yes, there is.
I forget what episode it was, but you talked with Clint about emerging markets, and that's where we talked about it before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You were on the other side of the camera that time.
I know.
Yeah, you remember that though.
I do.
You've heard all of these. You should do this recap, not me. You could probably do it.
No, that'd be a little bit of a surprise. Like, why who is this guy? And why does he know everything?
Josh could do the recap. You've heard every episode.
At least once.
At least once. More than once.
But
now, there's a third reason I think, and I think this is a very powerful reason. It's very often overlooked. So you're talking about Ecclesiastes 11, which we'll look at when we say how to. I love Ecclesiastes 11. I've taught from it a bunch of times. But in Genesis 1, we're going to go first chapter of the Bible. In the beginning, that's right. Genesis 1:28 it's sometimes called the creation mandate, where God created creation, and he created humans, and he created humans in his image, and he said, you are my managers. And it's this idea, first off, of kings put their statues all over a country in ancient days, and it was as much of saying, I am king, this is mine. Right. So it was like God putting his image in us, making us in his image, and saying, I am king, this is mine, and these are my representatives. Okay. So we are his representatives, we are his managers. Now sin has totally screwed this up, just twisted it all to hell. Exactly, all to hell. Not a bad word there. Okay, so I don't have to get bleeped out when I say that. It's like it's really screwed it up poorly. But the original design, there's still that. It's still there in that we are God's representatives. We're made in His image, and we are part of our job was to cause creation to flourish. So when we invest, right? We invest in a new business. We invest in a real estate investment. We invest in a stock. We invest in a bond. We invest in a commodity.
And a crop.
And a crop, yeah. Whether it's a crop, whether it's an energy-based commodity, whether it's a precious metal, whether it's an industrial metal. Right? Whether it's a startup company that we're buying an IPO stock, or whether it's one that's been around what do you call it, a blue boomer stock? That's your favorite, blue boomer stock, that's right.
Blue chips for boomers?
Blue chips for boomers, that's right. This millennial thinks I'm a boomer. Right? I love you boomers out there, but y'all know I'm not one. I'm the age of your kids.
And I'm going to have to...
You're digressing on that? Go ahead. Go ahead, boomer.
You decided to bite.
Go ahead, Gen AA.
I would say I think what I enjoy more is the fact that you take such offense to being called a boomer.
Well, us Gen Xers, we do take offense to everything.
Right.
We're kind of squeezed between you.
I'm my own person.
I'm my own. That's right. That's right. Right. But the creation mandate, when we invest, if we invest in something that's good, something that's growing, something that's creating something new, or sustaining a service that is valuable, a service or a product or provision, okay, that is one role that we're fulfilling in that creation mandate.
Yeah.
Investment is a part of the creation mandate when it's done good. And what I mean by good, it doesn't harm people, doesn't harm the environment. And I believe that in a free market economy, okay, this is capitalism, economics 101, okay, real freedom, okay, not the political statement on this. The market punishes bad players.
Yeah.
All right, so if you have a poor service, you have a poor product, the market will punish you by putting you out of business.
No bailouts.
No bailouts in that case. So if you're investing in that, in companies that do not harm people and do not harm the environment, you as the investor need to make that choice. So, right? Now you're fulfilling that creation mandate.
We're talking about ESG.
Oh, ESG falls into that, but
So
I think
environmental, social,
and government's investing. But just I'm not even.
Okay.
Yes, the way we think of ESG and the way we have to describe it because it all lumps in that way.
Yeah.
But I'm not really talking about ESG. I'm really just talking about kick out the investments that don't harm people and don't harm the environment, which, again, are ESG investments, okay? But it leaves a lot of good stocks out there. You don't have to line up with them politically. I'm not saying all that. I'm just saying that a company that sells a 2x4 and nails helps a builder build a house.
True.
Is that going to fall into all the ESG investments? It may not. I don't know.
Depends on the screener.
Depends on the screener. Exactly. That's why, yes, we've taught an episode on the ESG investing. We've taught on it more than once. But that's why I'm kind of shying away from labeling it like that.
Yeah.
It's just under the creation mandate, we participate in that through our investments. It's not the only way we do, but that is one way that our investments, that's certainly how our money participates in it.
Right.
Okay, so is investing biblical? I think investing is necessary.
Okay.
Yes, it's biblical, and I think it's biblically necessary.
Okay.
As opposed to putting your money in a mason jar and sticking it in the ground.
So there is money. God does have a purpose for wealth. You can invest biblically, and it is biblical to invest.
Yes.
So now that we've built those 2 points, how would you invest biblically? We talked a little ESG there, taking a step back. How would we invest biblically?
Yeah. All right, so I would go to Ecclesiastes 11.
Yes.
Now we're going
there.
to cast our grain across the seas. We're going to throw it on it. How would you like that? We're going to build from a 3,000-year-old. Yeah.
So we're talking about the Mediterranean Sea, right? While you're looking that up. So it is one of those things. So for anybody that doesn't know, I was actually in the military for a little while. Got to be in the Navy. So I've actually.
Did you go to the Med?
I did.
Did you go through the Suez?
I've been through the Suez. I've been through the Strait of Gibraltar, and I've also got to fly over the Mediterranean on my way to my ship. And a trip of itself, that is not a sea.
It's an ocean.
As somebody would think.
Yeah, it's not like a lake that you go bass fishing in.
It is not small. So to think sometimes, especially in biblical times, when they talk about the Mediterranean, now we also talk about other gulfs that are out there in the Red Sea and different things, but the Mediterranean Sea is not small. So just to think that somebody would sail across it with the crop, which could be, a considerable amount of money.
Right, yeah.
There has to be a lot of trust in both the people and in God in order to do something like that.
Right.
But anyway.
And it's I mean, you were in the Navy, and it was just what they did then. So they rode the seas. They took risks.
Yeah.
They did hard things. I tell my daughters all that. Go do hard things.
Yeah.
Then you get to see cool stuff. You're also in the Gulf of Aqaba, the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea. I mean,
anywhere between India, Africa, and then on up into the Straits of Hormuz, Iran, and all that. So I got to do some fun stuff over there.
Job title in the Navy. What did you do?
So I was a boarding officer, but we got to hunt pirates.
So I'm hiring this guy. I look on his resume and he has some Navy title. I'm like, what does this do? He said, I hunted pirates. I was like, you're a pirate hunter? I was like, you're hired just because you're a pirate hunter. That's awesome.
It was a fun time. I enjoyed the good that I got to do.
Yeah.
But going back, I think people they don't understand the amount of risk that statement. All right.
For disclosure and citation information, please go to www.soundfsg.com/disclosures.